We're bringing healthy back. Them other bros don't know about the facts.
So, welcome everybody to the magic of metabolic health, where optimizing your metabolic health is our goal, and we are here to get you there. My name is Amelia Wood, and I am a certified personal trainer and metabolic health coach. Today, we are doing our first interview, and I am so excited. My partner in crime, Dr. Fumi, couldn't make it, so it's just going to be me and our wonderful guest, who happens to be my favorite endocrinologist, Dr. Roshani Sanghani. So hello and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Amelia. It's so good to see you again.
Yes, thank you for being here. I'm totally blushing because I'm so excited to just this is a huge privilege for me, and we got to meet in person in August at the Symposium for Metabolic Health in San Diego, and I bought one of your books and you signed it, and I started reading it, and I already gave it away to one of my neighbors, and she's reading it. So thank you so much for that. And actually, I wanted to mention that you were featured in our first ever podcast episode. If you remember, earlier this year, we asked some of our healthcare colleagues to define metabolic health in 5 words or less. And it was a tough challenge, but you did it. You were one of the people who did it. And do you remember what you said?
I think it was something about turning around insulin resistance.
Yep, yep, it's turning around insulin resistance. I distinctly remember that. So anyway, please introduce yourself. Tell us about all the fabulous things you do.
Sure. Yes. So yes, and I really liked that. It was a hard challenge that you put out there to talk about metabolic health in 5 words. But as you mentioned, because I was already working on the book in the earlier part of this year, the word turning around was in my head. And, insulin resistance is, for your audience who's never heard that word, maybe what people may know about is difficulty losing weight, feeling chronic fatigue, feeling inflammation, feeling pre-diabetes, diabetes, feeling fatty liver on their tests, or having high blood pressure, having heart disease, being at risk for cancer, having PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome, having high triglycerides. The list goes on, having gout and high uric acid. The list goes on. And the common thread between all of these, even chronic stress and chronic fatigue syndrome, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, there's a common thread in all of these, and that is insulin resistance. And that I'm an endocrinologist, so I'm a hormone doctor. That means insulin, being a hormone, comes under my department. And I just realized through my medical journey that I had, without realizing and without wanting to, I had become sort of boxed into looking at every condition with, what am I supposed to prescribe for this? And till this day, Amelia, I kid you not, I'm always maintaining my endocrinology degree with the United States, even though I live in India, so that my degree is recognized. And the questions I have to keep taking every quarter, every year to stay certified, they give you sort of patient scenarios and ask you what you're going to do next. And it's never about getting them to reduce their carbohydrates or change their sleep habits or change their nutrition or change their stress management, change their exercise pattern, fasting. None of that is covered. And it's like 5 choices for me as a doctor. And they're all different drug choices. They're all medications. There's no discussion about their lifestyle. So I started feeling like when I prescribe these medications, I'm not helping them get better. I'm just like pushing the symptoms down. Like if it's high blood pressure, give a medication to reduce blood pressure. If it's a high blood glucose, give a medication to bring it down. Same way, like triglycerides, give a medication. It was just getting very robotic for me. I wasn't feeling the joy that I wanted to have as a healthcare provider. I also wasn't feeling good when I kept visiting hospitals and going in to see a patient who's not well, and all I'm supposed to do is manage their insulin by 4 units up or 4 units down. They're being given these hospital trays that have processed carbohydrate-based food coming in as hospital food, and their glucose is spiking, and I'm supposed to bring insulin in and push it down. I just kept feeling like this is a failure of medication management and lifestyle management outside hospital. And I want to be preventing people from getting into hospital. So the whole business model of sickness care just didn't compute for me. And so finally in 2016, well, yes, so I did become a personal trainer before that. I did become a diabetes educator before that. I became a mindful eating facilitator, which is to learn about emotional eating and to learn about our relationship with food, our relationship with our body. Because what is diabetes if not, sure, it's a problem of insulin, but there is also a lot of habits that we have to look at if we're trying to have better diabetes with less medication. So that became my fascination. So I went into all these other areas. I got trained in motivational interviewing, which is a coaching and a listening technique, more listening before talking and telling people what to do, and my spiritual journey. So I started to not just feel like, oh, I'm a doctor with my degree on the wall and my certificates just give me this authority to like smash my knowledge into the patient's head in 5 minutes and they're going to walk out and be changed forever. I was like, that's feeling very delusional and arrogant. And so my spiritual journey brought it to where I see myself as equal. I see a person on the other side of this conversation. It's not a up and down power dynamic. We're two equals here to sort of have a more meaningful time so that you can benefit as the client or the patient or friend, or it's completely changed my practice. So 2016, I flipped things around. And ever since then, Amelia, it's kind of like without realizing it, I've become an entrepreneur where I keep trying to improve the way I do this, keep trying to make a change and make it better each time.
I think that's one of the reasons why I adore you, because I also take that approach in multiple crafts. I don't just run this business, I have another one. And so I'm always trying to think outside the box and learn from other professionals who've been doing this longer than I have and who have different kinds of training. And that's one of the things I really respect about you too, is like you didn't just stay an endocrinologist. You understood that we have to come at our health, our metabolic health, in a very holistic way. And so, you remind me of myself too, where I have a tendency to say, oh, they're not going to do it, I'll just do it myself. And so I get this certification and that certification, and I start this project and that project. And I think one thing, going to, for example, the Symposium for Metabolic Health conference in San Diego, we were both talking earlier about how we made friendships and relationships, and it really expanded kind of this potential for capacity. Like, hey, I don't have to do this by myself. I don't have to know all the things. We're very well equipped, individuals, but I love the community that, now we're friends, and I got to help you sell your books and watch you interact with these people who are so grateful for the work that you're doing. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your book, because the title itself, Turn Around Diabetes. Do you have a copy?
I do, yeah. Since yours is with your friend, I thought I'll hold it up.
Yes. So why turn around diabetes? I bet it might have been a really hard process to decide on the
Yeah.
title of the book.
Yes, we had lots of title options and subtitle. I think the subtitle was even harder, um, because I worked with a really good editor and publishing expert to help me publish, because I ended up self-publishing this. Can you imagine? I wasn't able to get it picked up by any of the big publishing houses or literary agents that I contacted, and I pitched this book for 2 years and finally decided to go myself and self-publish. So I did work with a professional who helped me get it to the finish line. And I got to know him through Philovadia. So it's all again coming through the network of metabolic health practitioners. And Philovadia and I got to know each other through Tro and Brian through the Low Carb MD podcast. So that's how this tribe has already been helping me for a few years now, even though we had never met in person until August, till last month. That's the beauty of it. But yes, the title Turnaround Diabetes, I being an endocrinologist, I work with people who have not only type 2, but also type 1 diabetes. And we're considered the top line expert when it comes to managing diabetes in general, but definitely type 1, because it's a lot of fine tuning of the insulin prescription. And we're the most trained and possibly the most qualified in terms of medical training to do that. And so I wanted to make sure type 1 diabetes was represented. So if I say reverse it, then I was excluding the type 1 community, because till date, as of now, as of September 2024, we don't have a cure for them. And of course, the research is going on, but the reality still remains they do need to be on insulin injections. So I couldn't say reverse or cure. So I had to talk about something where we were changing the trajectory. And as you get into the book, I realized, lifestyle change, or as you mentioned, and you and I both care about helping people build something they can sustain. It's not a fad. It's not a quick fix. It's not a short term, oh, let me do this for 3 months before my best friend's wedding just to look good in the pictures. And then after that, I'll go back to my old ways, like some yo-yo pattern. No, we want to do this once and have the body be getting improved every single month and me becoming a better version of myself every time. So it was a journey. It wasn't a destination.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I needed something dynamic. And I came up with this analogy that I've been using in practice for a long time, is my lifestyle car. And the car is your lifestyle, and it's got 4 wheels: nutrition, sleep management, stress management, exercise. And then fifth optional thing is, once your car is okay, you can maybe put some extra luggage on top and go on a long road trip. That would be the fasting, intermittent fasting. So turnaround gave me the option of using this car and saying we can turn things around, giving it sort of a dynamic nature, where the current narrative in mainstream diabetes speak is diabetes is a chronic and progressive condition. It only gets worse. Your only option is to keep adding more and more medications if you're type 2, or if it's type 1, just keep going for more insulin as you need. As long as the glucose is going high, just keep adding insulin. And that narrative was just one way. There was nothing being told to us in our training as endocrinologists. We were never taught how to turn things around. So I wanted to make it visual and movement into the title. And then, of course, so that people know it's for type 2 and type 1, step by step. And we can talk more about what's inside the book.
Yeah, that's actually something I also really appreciate about how you talk in the book is you could have written a very sciencey, heady, like data-based, research-based book to like sell to all the smart people, right? All the professionals to prove how smart and trained you are, but you didn't. You're going to the people, and that is something that Fumi and I, as podcast hosts and as healthcare practitioners, that's our number one thing is we want to bridge the gap, shrink the gap between knowledge and application, and you do such a beautiful job. And because I have read some of it before I gave the book away, you boldface things, the way you structure different sections is really clear. And I'm not saying like you wrote it for dummies. You're just writing it to all the people out there who didn't go to medical school but know their bodies, understand that there's something not right, and you have the perfect language to help us better understand ourselves, right? And the steps we need to maybe take.
Yes, it's all designed to empower you. So, and I tell this joke a lot, is if all the book was going to say was reduce your carbohydrates and get your protein up, get 7-8 hours of sleep, learn how to manage your stress, exercise 3 to 4 times a week, stay active, keep moving, and do intermittent fasting whenever every now and then. It's a 5-sentence, 1-page book. Okay. That's been said already. People have heard that. It's everywhere on the internet. What this book gives people is, okay, when you start to reduce your carbohydrates, what are the problems you might come up with? What are the sugar cravings? or the carbohydrate withdrawal or the hunger pangs that you might go through? What are your thoughts around food? What are the difficulties you face with increasing protein? And that's very relevant, especially in my world, because I deal with a lot of people from the Indian culture, a lot of vegetarianism, even globally. People who want to work with me, sometimes they come because they're interested to know how to do this as a vegetarian or from an Indian background. And I address that specifically from the angle of protein, because we know they have to be more conscious and more deliberate. Sometimes their digestive issues pop up. So I've dedicated so much bandwidth to the common understandings or misunderstandings when it comes to nutrition. Same thing with sleep, not just go get 7-8 hours, but what's getting in the way of you getting those 7-8 hours? What's stopping you from doing it, even though you know you should be doing it? In fact, the stress management section of my book is, I went and checked. I didn't realize, but that's the biggest part of my book is stress management, because I believe so much in the power of thought. And if this book is not just me telling you what to do and go follow my orders, then it's an empowerment book. It's an empowerment manual. How do I empower you if I don't change the way you think? And so I
Right.
go through,
Mhm.
sorry. And so I go through common limiting self-talk and help you move to empowering self-talk. And if there are deeper beliefs that keep us self-limited, sometimes that gets in the way. And I care a lot about diabetes distress, which is to acknowledge that living with diabetes, living with a chronic condition can get overwhelming sometimes. It's not easy to have to think about so many angles of your health and lifestyle every day. And to feel sometimes like it's a lonely journey that people don't understand. And that can wear you down. And in exercise, I put exercise fourth because, sometimes people will walk into the clinic and then they're told, eat less. Eat less and move more. And it's like this calorie approach. And I debunk the calorie approach straight up, as the science of that has not worked. It's a hormone approach, but again, keeping it simple so they understand. But in the exercise section, I keep it fourth because if you take someone who's not nourished properly, or who's not sleeping well, or who's very stressed, and you go tell them, go exercise, it'll fix everything. They probably don't have the energy for it. They don't have the rested body for it or the recovered body for it. They don't have the mood for it. And all these things get in the way. And then they feel more guilty is, I know I should exercise, but I just can't. And they take it on themselves and feel so bad. So I wait to bring in exercise after step by step. So there's wheel of the car, wheel 1, 2, 3, 4 in order. And so you can come into the book and read something, but it kind of links back and forth. So you end up needing to cross-reference. So I feel like it's woven together in a way where all your questions are cross-linked with other things. That's the complexity of it. But at the same time, if you have one flat tire, you're not going to reach your destination.
Right. So I'm kind of viewing your book as a compass to help us navigate our cars, our bodies, our lives. And a huge part of it is about emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, our traumas, things that we're told not to talk about or just forget about. And I think you do a great job at helping people understand the importance of acknowledging every part of us, and as a personal trainer, people expect me to just say, oh, here are some weights, go do this many times, this many days, for this many weeks, and then you'll get the results. And I've actually changed my title. I call myself a food first personal trainer, which I'm still trying to say more often, because I can't, for me, I don't want to work with people who don't understand the importance and the power and the relationship, like you're saying, of all the wheels. And so if I did, I would be doing them a disservice, and I would be misleading them if I just said, just go work it off in the gym. You'll be fine.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Because they know their physical reality is, I feel like crap. I feel so bad. I'm not able to do it. And there must be something wrong with me. And that demotivates them even further. So I honor that you've had the courage to insist that if I'm going to give you care, it needs to be complete, because without that, I don't feel authentic. And I need to show up as authentically as a trainer as I can. I felt the exact same way. And that's why I think we're like kindred spirits and we just clicked as soon as we met, was we want to give you the entire experience. We want to hold you and support you so that you succeed. I'm here for your success. And I know, as an expert in my field, I know what might get in your way. So I want to give you the compass. I want to give you the map. I want to help you, give you the guidance. It's like Google Maps, right? Google can say, go left if you want to save some time in traffic. You may go right, and then Google will re-navigate from that right turn. They're not going to say, you bad person, I give up on you and make you feel terrible.
Yeah, and that makes me think of behavior change, right? And you have a lot of information that's given to you when you meet with a patient, and they may or may not be uh, open and honest about all of the things, right? And one of the things I got to see you do at the Symposium for Metabolic Health in San Diego is you put all of your book into a 5 minute experience for us to witness with a woman there who volunteered to go up on stage and talk with you. And do you want to share a little bit about that? Because it
Yeah.
was absolutely mind blowing for me.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps even remembering that day. Right now, I'm getting goosebumps as you bring it up. That was profound. Like, obviously, I had baked it into my presentation to ask for 5 minutes to do a demo if someone was willing. And so to give context, that presentation was about me showing the audience that even in 5 minutes of a busy clinic or a busy provider patient interaction or a client provider interaction, the provider can show up differently. And that's the whole point. That audience was people from the public who are interested in improving their health. It was healthcare professionals who want to help patients improve their metabolic health through lifestyle first, and medication maybe as a second option once we've maximized on lifestyle. So what is lifestyle? It's behavior change. But if someone comes in and you say, do this, do this, do this, we know it doesn't work. And sometimes they leave feeling worse than they came, which was exactly the opposite of what my heart was trying to do for this person. So can we show up differently in those 5 minutes? And when I said, let's do a demo, this lady was so brave. And I'm so glad I got to work with her. She came up and said about her struggle with food. And she's trying very hard because she wants to be there for her child. And she shared a very difficult story that she had been through. And it came up within a 5 minute on stage live demo. People asked me later whether I knew her backstory and whether this was like a baked or fake sort of a planted person in the audience. It wasn't. I had no idea what she was going to share. I thought we'll talk about something easy or something, simple. But she brought up something so complex. It was one of the most complex traumas I had ever been, exposed to and definitely not on stage in front of an audience of like 100 people. So I was really feeling for her as, my God, this woman is so brave that she's sharing and being vulnerable like this. And so my goal was, she's not wasting her time. I don't want to waste her time by not giving her my full 100% effort and attention now. So for me, the audience disappeared and it was just her and me. And I was like, okay, I'm here for you 100%. And that's the technique of motivational interviewing, where you're reflecting back, you're becoming a calm and non-judgmental space for them to think aloud. And what was interesting was she almost, if I have to sort of paraphrase and summarize, she knew what she was struggling with, and she had been in and out of yo-yo patterns in the past, but she was able to make some connections about where there might be an element of self-sabotage, where there's a part of her that didn't want to let go of that behavior. And she saw it, and she was so honest. And she said, there's a part of me that wants to not be on this stage right now. And because that's what sometimes happens, is the truth just comes to the surface, and it's uncomfortable sometimes when we see how we're getting in our own way. And that's the beautiful thing about motivational interviewing, is it normalizes the fact that we feel two ways about something. And that was the point of my talk, was it's not wrong. It's not something to be ashamed of. That is part of the human experience, and I gave jokey examples about, I know I should pay my taxes and credit cards on time, but I have all these reasons why I don't. So that gap between knowing what's going to help me and actually doing it, that's normal to live in that gap for a lot of our time. And we sort of waste a lot of energy there, but it's a very important place to be aware of. so that we can finally come out of it. And I was able to use the tools of motivational interviewing to help her bring that together. Obviously, in a 5-minute demo, I wasn't able to solve it. It's not my job to solve it. She may not have completely been cured that 6th minute, but the point is for this to be a step-by-step gradual process where she owned it on stage. And I always am going to respect her for the fact that she owned it, because the more you bring your things that you might have been ashamed about, if you bring them into the light, they cannot cause you guilt and shame once you've shown that light on them. And that's something I learned from Brene Brown too, is, that the power of vulnerability is guilt and shame. They get stronger in the shadows. Once you shine light on them, your own light on them, and your unconditional love and acceptance, and maybe sometimes the unconditional love and acceptance of the coach or the provider. Like if the patient doesn't have it for themselves, maybe we show up and give them some. And that helps them wake up again to, oh, yes, I can do this for myself. I want to. And that sort of gives them that energy to move, maybe one baby step forward. And I think that happened. I did speak to her after the event, and I was concerned, like, are you okay? Are you feeling whole? And are you feeling like we got to some sort of closure? Because I didn't want to open up something so big and leave her like in a frazzled state. But she said, no, I really felt heard. I really felt like you were not rushing in there to fix me with your preconceived notions. What I was saying was important to you. And I came off that stage with more clarity. And that's all you can do for someone anyway.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you brought up guilt and shame, because in our last episode, we talked a lot about that, and how as health and wellness, I don't consider myself a healthcare professional, but I'm a health and wellness person. It's my career. Um, One thing I don't ever want to do is make my clients feel like they're failures because they ate that, or they didn't work out that day, or whatever. Like they said they were going to do something and they didn't do it. And one of my mentors in college would always say, guilt and shame are the bookends of oppression.
Of oppression?
Of oppression, which is really heavy if you think about it. And you can apply it to systems, right? But you can also apply it individually. And if I'm operating out of a place of guilt and shame, that doesn't serve me in any way. It's like an automatic hard stop to just be stuck. And what I love about motivational interviewing is that, like you already said, is it validates and affirms the other person's experience. And instead of me as the provider, let's say, or you as the provider, just, observing and like taking notes and, well, you are this. And I see this is the problem and here's the solution. We throw all that out the window. And it was absolutely incredible because I could tell that she wasn't a plant. I was a witness. Like I was sitting there in the front row watching this, and I could see your gears turning in your head. I could see you breathing through the moment by moment scenario, and truly like just letting her be the expert,
Yeah.
right? That's one thing that I'm learning about as a coach and as a personal trainer is my clients are the biggest experts of themselves. They know themselves more than anybody you could ever know, I could ever know. And so I saw you affirm that in her, and I think she felt that. She felt really acknowledged.
Yes. I think that's a big shift for all of us is, and I learned this from MI, from motivational interviewing completely, is that makes the relationship and interaction between two experts. I'm the expert with my degree on the wall of all the things I've studied and taken exams for. You're the expert in you and your reality, your likes, dislikes, preferences, situation at home, pressures, worries, concerns, priorities. You're the expert in that. We need both to succeed, and it's a partnership.
Exactly. Yeah. So, a couple other points that came up was the fact that you're an endocrinologist, right? Uh, I think that specialty is something that a lot of women, our ears perk up when we hear that, because we know that you know about hormones, and women, for obvious reasons, we live a life full of hormones, and we talk about it, we hear about it, we watch movies and shows about it, probably more so than a lot of men. And so I would love to hear maybe some approaches or experiences you have specifically on um, metabolic health or hormone issues that are really common that you see with your female patients, or anything you'd like to share.
Yes, lots of angles on that. So a woman's journey with the unique hormone differences that she has compared to the male start early. Like, I guess even from the age of 9 or 8, young girls start noticing their bodies changing. We're seeing the periods and menstrual cycle and puberty starting earlier and earlier. Maybe there's an influence of external hormone disruptors in the environment, pollutants and pollution in the food, air, water that we're exposed to, plastics maybe. But girls are affected by that. And so they're getting their bodies to change, they're developing, and they may end up, because of this insulin resistance sort of epidemic, whether it's the food or it's a genetic tendency or the external environment, are developing more and more polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. So young girls might face acne, irregular periods that don't come every month, hair in areas that they don't feel good about. It's like thicker or darker texture of hair, thinning of the hair up here. As they go later on into age, fertility may be a concern. If they're not, ovulating every month and having a cycle every month, that might mean reduced fertility. It's not that they don't have babies. This is a very rude thing. I mean, I've had 14-year-olds being told by their pediatrician or gynecologist, oh, you're not going to have babies. A 14-year-old, that's an extremely harmful. And this 14-year-old deserves to go to school and play with her friends and come home and do homework and go downstairs and play again. But she's come home with this like bucket of stress on her head, is I'm not going to be a mother. It's very rude to do that. It's incorrect and harmful, because it's not that they're infertile. And whether they decide to become mothers or not, first of all, a 14-year-old's not having to make that decision at that point. But it's not something we should be stressing her into at this age where she's feeling broken. And she can, for sure, if she chooses, if it's her choice to go ahead and become a parent, she can. And it's just we have to help people with PCOS understand what to do about it. So that's a psychological component that starts affecting young women. Body shaming starts very early. The social media pressures that young people are exposed to, we're all exposed to, but I think more so for children who have grown up with the reality of technology in their hands from childhood. I think that generation is already growing, where their first interaction with, the internet has been from a very early age. So images that you see of body expectations, body shaming, fat shaming, I see it happen all the time. And this gets into not only girls' heads, I'm sure it gets into boys' heads also. And so this starts to weigh on you, is how is the body fat distribution going? And by design, hormonally, women will hold on to more body fat than men. It's just always going to be that way. We have estrogen, and estrogen does that. It gives the curves, it gives the female shape. It is going to cause some amount of fat storage, and that's not a bad thing. As you go later into life, you end up with possibly pre-diabetes, diabetes, because of the insulin resistance. So women are not immune to that. Women also can gain fat around the central region, around the stomach, which we would call apple-shaped weight gain. Women tend to have a more pear-shaped body, where the feminine weight gain tends to be on the hips and the thighs. But with this insulin resistance epidemic, women are also noticing the android, what we say, not gynoid, but the inches getting gained around the waistline, around the stomach. And that is the metabolically unhealthy sort of change that can happen as they go higher in age. And then, of course, perimenopause and menopause, where the female hormones are now on the decline. There can be mood swings. There can be that worsening of PMS. There can be, again, irregular menstrual periods where suddenly you're bleeding super heavy and you're just getting anemic from so much blood loss. You're feeling weak, you're losing bone density now, you're at risk for osteoporosis and osteopenia, you're losing muscle if you're not careful about it. So all of these things are going on for women specifically, besides, for a male, if I have to say, I'm not diminishing by any standard, what men go through, but their hormonal patterns don't have this big shift from the age of 15 to 45. It's sort of like once you get to your puberty, men can stay that way well into their 80s and 90s if they're healthy. So there isn't that big fluctuation the way women go through.
Right. So personally, I started to think while you were talking, I'm 43, and I have a lot of friends who are either struggling with weight issues, female friends. They're struggling with digestive issues. They don't know if they're in perimenopause or not. Some of them haven't had a period in a year, and then they're told, oh, if it's been a year, then you're done. But then sometimes it comes back. And so I guess my question would be, if I'm having those symptoms, and I know each symptom could mean something different, but as we were saying earlier, it's all connected. Not that I'm asking for medical advice, but what would be something that maybe you could reference your book? I didn't get too far into it. If there's a section in your book that addresses perimenopause and common symptoms, and how would what first steps would I take to understand what these symptoms are, like what's related to them, what's maybe causing them,
Mhm.
what do you think?
Well, everybody should, if they're entering into perimenopause, at some point should start tracking a few things with their doctor. If you think you might be going into perimenopause, the blood tests to do would be an LH and FSH and estradiol at 8 o'clock in the morning. And this would sort of show you, especially if the FSH has gone high and the estradiol has gone low, that might show you how you're heading towards perimenopause. We would want to start tracking your body composition, as we were talking about how you are likely to hold on to more fat and lose muscle over time. So we would want to establish a baseline. You can do this with a DEXA scan, and then your provider can follow up on that. So it's called a DEXA scan with body composition analysis. That would be the most accurate way. The ones in the gym where you hold on to a machine or you step on it barefoot and it sort of sends light signals through your hands and palms and soles of your feet, those are more inaccurate. And so those won't be great ways to follow over the long term. So your doctor and you can decide how often you want to look at your DEXA scan. A woman should definitely be getting her ultrasound and her pap smears so that she knows, like if you're like the person you were talking about, if someone's having, after a year of not bleeding, if they're having another bleed, they definitely need to see their gynecologist, because we would call that postmenopausal bleeding. That's not normal. Once you've been 12 months, no periods, that's menopause. And then we should not expect bleeding to happen after that. So that would need an evaluation for sure right away, including an ultrasound. So there are lots of things that women need to start taking care of beyond, their fertility years, this perimenopause time. Of course, we would look at insulin resistance. I've seen women whose hot flashes, PMS symptoms, almost like low mood, almost depression, get better and not need to be put on hormone replacement therapy just by fixing their metabolic health through the lifestyle approaches that we were talking about earlier, is by fixing their nutrition, their protein, their sleep habits, stress management, exercise, maybe some fasting. They're able to see changes in their body composition. So it's not necessary that just because you hit perimenopause or menopause, you have to gain weight and you have to lose muscle and have to gain fat. It's not necessary. You can still maintain great health. We just need to help you with the right support systems for your body to do that. And then they've been able to avoid hormone replacement if they wanted to. I'm okay if the right patient needs to be put on hormone replacement. I'm on my own hormone replacement therapy right now. I have no problem saying that because I'm 46 and I could see the symptoms. It was affecting my thinking. It was affecting my sleep. And those were the big symptoms for me that I wanted to make sure I addressed. And so it can be done under supervision, and it's possible to do it without as well, and also still maintain great metabolic health.
So I heard you mention protein a few times, and I'm a big protein person. I'm also a fat person. Like I love to eat fat, is what I meant. Primarily, my main source is olive oil. I don't drink it, but I could. Like that's how much I love it. Um, could you share? I don't know if there's a section in your book that talks about protein specifically with folks who are trying to improve their insulin response. It could be women,
Yes.
men, anybody. I know protein is a really hot topic these days. There's a lot of controversial conversations about, too much, too little, how do you measure, how do you know, right? Since it's obviously individual per person.
So I've answered each of those questions in my book because each of those questions are deal breakers for people who are trying to do this. If they don't have clarity on those things, they're likely to get stuck and it'll just remain a hypothetical idea in their head and they won't know what to do. So I have answered each and every one of those questions. How do you count it? How much? What are the controversies? What are we learning? And again, I published this book in 2024. As with any good science book, you have to be willing to say it's possible that new research will come and we'll have to revise what we said. And that's science. And you have to be willing to do that. I don't think it's right to say, I'm going to just tell you what I learned in graduate school, in med school 25 years ago, and expect that something I learned, well, yeah, almost 25 years ago is still valid today and nothing new has come since then. I mean, that would be scary, right? So we need to be staying on top of science. And I've been very open there that this is what we know right now. I'm not the researcher doing the things in the lab myself. I rely on PhDs and researchers in labs to come up with this information so we can learn and then bring it to our patients in simple terms and then see what works. So, for example, I make sure that my patients get at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram body weight per day. So that would be, I think, in terms of kilograms, but like a 60-kilogram person would be around, I think about 130 pounds or so, would need at least 75 grams of protein a day, at least. And I start low like that because in India, when I'm doing their assessments, they're sometimes at 25 grams of protein a day, 25. And if you look at the Western data, people are easily targeting because they have more access and openness to animal sources. It's much easier to reach your targets. They're going like 1 gram per pound, which is 2.2 grams per kilogram, which would be for a 60 kg person, that would be like 120 or 130 grams of protein per day. So any range within that is safe. There's been no evidence that that causes kidney damage. It's just been a rumor that's been getting thrown around and not validated. So how to get to protein, I covered what are the protein sources. I'm a vegetarian, but I respect and I honor and I support anybody who's going as per their cultural beliefs and preferences. You want to go carnivore, we'll help you. You want to go vegan, we'll help you. It's going to be more difficult. You'll have to be much more thoughtful about it to stay low carb and stay plant-based. It's much more challenging. You have to make sure you're using enough variety, and you probably need to use a protein supplement in that point because it's not going to happen through just eating legumes and vegetables. Or tofu. You're going to not be able to reach the target because the fiber and everything is going to fill you up. So I go into all this detail in my book so that people can actually solve this in a way that they can sustain for the rest of their life.
Right. So one of the words that I try not to use, I in the last episode, I think I talked about the D word, which is diet. Uh,
Yes.
you can define it a couple different ways, but traditionally, I think all over the world, the term diet it's a loaded word, right? And so if we're talking about protein and improving our numbers, whether it's our blood plant panel, like our metabolic numbers, or maybe it's just energetically, maybe I struggle with feeling fatigued or lethargic. Maybe that's related to my protein intake. How do we make that sustainable change? Because I know that for myself, sometimes in the past, when I was trying to increase my protein, I didn't have the appetite for it because my body wasn't used to it. And so then I felt like I was force feeding myself. And then, of course, I learned, okay, don't do that. Baby steps, right?
Yes.
Just increase by a couple ounces every day or every week, and then eventually your body will acclimate. Uh, do you, so since you're a personal trainer, you're an endocrinologist, uh, a facilitator in motivational interviewing, you have this plethora of knowledge. And so if someone comes to you and says, well, how do I do this sustainably, doc? What, I get the wheels, right? The four wheels, but how am I going to get through the holidays? How am I going to get through my vacation? How am I going to get through grandma's house when I go to grandma's house and she gets upset when I don't eat her food, you know? So navigating perceived obstacles or challenges, like what do you have to say about that?
Oh, for sure. And that's, you're so right about not wanting this to be just a diet that works under perfect conditions in a lab environment where nobody's irritating you, no one's disturbing your plans, and nobody's throwing curveballs in your way, right? And we know that life is going to throw you potholes and traffic jams, and there's going to be unexpected things along this journey. So if we don't prepare you for those eventualities, chances are this just became a fancy diet. You did low carb for 3 months and then it didn't sustain because holidays came, because weddings or vacations came, or stress came. You know, anything could show up and sabotage your diet because it wasn't a lifestyle, it was a diet. So I have to always look at, where are we trying to get to? Let's not lose sight of my destination. What is my goal? And so I do a lot of journey mapping with my clients before we start, is what matters to you? What's important to you? Well, I want to be healthy so that I'm there for my kids. I want to be healthy so I can make my startup successful because I want to make the world a better place. I want to be healthy so I can play golf. I want to be healthy so that XYZ. When we help them stay focused on their why, then when these things come up, they get to decide. And in the book, I actually go through this. It's in the mindset section as well, because if a sabotage comes in my way, I can sort of respond or react to that with, oh, this is an urgent problem or urgent need of mine, or there's a relative who wants me to eat this, otherwise they'll feel bad. I can respond to that immediate thing, and it could be a one-off, but how do I get back to my long-term goals? So my short-term needs and my long-term needs, sometimes we feel like those are at odds with each other. Is I need to keep grandma happy, but she doesn't understand my diabetes goals. And so I'll deal with her today and I'll deal with diabetes tomorrow. That's okay, you know, if we do it once in a while. And at the same time, how does my body feel once I do it? How does my glucose feel afterwards? And does grandma know that I'm ruining my diabetes tonight to keep her happy? Does she know that? Because would she really be offended then if I told her, hey, grandma, I love you. I love what you've given me. Here's what's happening with me. This is my reality. So sometimes we don't actually speak out our truth to these situations. And we think I have to just be the buffer for everything. I almost feel like diabetes tends to get worse when we do that, is when we feel like we have to buffer all the external things of life. I don't have power to take a stand. So this is something we need to work with people to help them feel worthy enough. And vacation, if we say, okay, so vacation is you taking a break to enjoy something different. So it's for mostly for your mind, right? You're trying to get a break from work, a break from your day-to-day environment. You're giving a holiday to your mind. And what happens to your liver and your muscles and your pancreas and your body on this vacation? Is it getting hammered with alcohol? Is it getting no sleep because you're partying all night? Is it getting junk food because that's your definition of a vacation? How does your body feel after that? And so if we bring them back to, because sometimes people will come back after the vacation and say, oh, don't ask me what I did over there. That's like a black box. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Like, don't ask me about it. We'll reboot and start. I'm back online today. That's a yo-yo, because your body had to still deal with all that reality, even though your mind isn't really willing to look there. Your heart, your lungs, your liver, everybody was coping with whatever happened. And so to help people see that almost like a disconnect and be able to honor both needs is, hey, you had a need to have fun over there. Right now, it looks like you feel like you can either have fun or take care of your health, and you can't have both. And as long as we see it that way, It's not a lifestyle, it's a diet.
Right. You just said something about it triggered a memory. Very recently, you posted on YouTube, "Cake is just cake,"
Yes, exactly.
and truth is truth. Truth doesn't change what it is based on the weather.
Right.
And I reposted that because I think we all struggle with that, right? The duality of existence, the polarities, and like the inner struggle of like what is joy and what is health and what is celebration and what is punishment. Like,
Right. Exactly.
um, and
Hmm.
I think it also goes back to what we were talking about earlier is guilt and shame. You know, oh, don't let's not talk about what I did on vacation. Well, we might want to talk about it, not to guilt and shame you, but to better understand why.
Right.
Why did that happen? What did you need that wasn't getting met? And what was met by making those choices?
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm so with you on that. I want to continue from that thread is if you went on vacation and had a blast, you weren't suicidal during that vacation. You were not purposely destroying your body. But if you take a step back and get out of your own guilt and shame and judgmental thinking, somebody's benefiting twice from you. The food and the hotel and the entertainment industry benefited from you when you were in your party mode. And now the sickness industry and the dieting or weight loss or prescription medication industry is benefiting from your sickness. So you're losing out and becoming a consumer both ways.
Hmm.
So can we empower you? So I always feel like advice that is given that doesn't empower people, I have a big problem with that. Or advice that holds people back from feeling like they can be in, in their own authority, I have a problem with that. Anything that takes away your power. So, oh, well, the food industry, I don't want to, well, somebody benefited from that. There were commercial interests from you going into an extreme form of, pushing things into your body that now today you feel are not right, but you did think they were right a few days ago. Someone got you tricking yourself, and now you think it's your fault. You don't see the enemy here. It's an invisible enemy. And then you're in this situation where you have to say the right things. And if your doctor's not careful, they're going to become polluters here, just saying, oh, you did that? Here, let me prescribe you more medication. So, Amelia, I actually have a whole chapter dedicated to this. The chapter is called Recovering from Fun.
Hmm.
And how do you want your doctor to talk to you during that meeting? And how would you want to talk to yourself? Maybe the next time you go through fun, so that you don't have to recover from fun. Like it's almost like we're planning to do this. People are like, I always gain weight on a holiday. Well, then what are we doing about that? Are we planning around that? Are we preempting that or anticipating that? Or are we just going to be consumers all through and through, with our blindfolds on?
Right. Yeah, I think about strategy in managing those, what I want to say, opportunities instead of obstacles. I'm always trying to reframe things that are traditionally put into a negative context into, let's do abundance instead of scarcity. Let's do opportunity instead of obstacle. Let's say choice instead of restriction. All these things, I'm always just kind of gathering these lists to better communicate with anyone, not just my clients, also myself, because I'm human and I struggle and I just went on vacation and I just went to 4 different countries and wanted to try all these things, right? um oh, I lost my train of thought. So
Abundance. You were changing the words. Abundance.
right. Oh, so I was thinking about myself, but also people I know who really get caught up in, I don't have control over my life because there's constant temptation. Everyone
Right.
around me is doing this. Everyone on TV is doing this. Everyone in my home, everyone at school, everyone at work. And then I'm just this loser who has to say no all the time. No, thank you. No, thank you. I mean, I've been through that where as I was continuing to define and refine my lifestyle, my food lifestyle, my nutrition habits, I got to a point where I was saying, I'm so tired of saying no. No, thank you. Like I didn't get to the point where some folks I know just retreated and like stopped going out and being social. Part of my job, my other job, is to be social, so I didn't have that choice. But yeah, how do we continue to give ourselves grace and also reframe these obstacles or whatever as opportunities to stay committed and connected and grounded in our why, right? Our why has to be, I have this strategy that I use with my clients called the 4 essential steps, and I describe your why as being like your ride or die bestie. Your ride or
Mm-hmm.
die bestie calls you on your crap. They're there when you need them the most. They're there when you're mean, and they're still gonna, tolerate you and forgive you later. And they tell you the truth. And you're never gonna give up on your bestie. They're your ride or die, right? So our whys have to be unbreakable like that. And it doesn't mean we have to be perfect, but I love how you consistently go back to the why, right?
Oh, yeah. It's the internal driver, right? If we look from the psychology world, it's the intrinsic motivation rather than the extrinsic, is losing weight for somebody else's wedding versus I'm doing this for me because this is my body, this is my permanent address for this whole lifetime, and I want to take care of my house. This is my house. This is where I live
Exactly.
and in this physical form, and that much self-care and self-love. And I love your ride or die bestie. It gave me goosebumps. And I love the spiritual space that you're coming from, is to give ourselves that grace. It's that self-care and self-love that we're trying to awaken. And like you said, everybody has a why. Your why doesn't need to be that I want to invent the world's next cure for the most deadly disease on the planet. It doesn't have to be something at that scale. It could be your personal why. It's your reason for being. And I think, one of the things that a lot of us are suffering from in this world these days is we're disconnected in mind and body, where I'm living in my head in guilt and shame and living in the peer pressure. Like you said, everybody's doing this, everybody's doing that. What should I be doing? I'm not doing enough, or I have to do what they're doing. There's so much pressure. And we're disconnected from what's going on in our body. It's like we're only up here. And if we could slow down and take a breath, and I talk about this in the stress management chapter. Can you hear the dogs? No? I can hear the dogs squealing. Um, is the being in the present moment in the body, is if I'm thinking these thoughts, powerless thoughts, scarcity-based thoughts, how's my body responding to that? What's happening to my breath? Am I shrinking? Are my shoulders shrinking? Or if I'm thinking abundant thoughts, it's going to be very hard for me to be like that. I'm going to be more open. I'm going to stand taller. My shoulders, my breath, my eye contact, everything's going to change. And that has an impact on my hormones. So it's both ways. And, I come from the Indian context, and, yoga or pranayam or breath takes you back. And so many ancient traditions focus on breath because, if nothing else, if we're in our thought loops, we're not feeling the feeling in our body. Like we're talking about something. How could they do this to me? I'm feeling so bad. I did this on vacation. Now I'm going to go on this crash day. All this stuff. Am I in the body when I'm thinking those thoughts? Or is it just disconnected, disassociated, where I'm not even aware of the impact these thoughts are having on my physical being? And breath can help us two ways. Is when I'm feeling nasty, my breath is off. And if I change my breath, my nasty can start to change. It's both ways, cause and effect. So that's the beauty of breath. You can come back to the body and feel those feelings. It's uncomfortable. That's why a lot of us shut it off, because we don't want to feel those feelings. It's easier to just think and be neurotic about those feelings. And I love this book by Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist, called How to Do the Work. And she's got an amazing Instagram page. And she talks a lot about this, about the spiritual element of starting to heal our thoughts and hear the words. And maybe we've all had traumas in the past that brought us to these kind of coping mechanisms where we disconnected from the body. But the good news is it is possible to heal. It's difficult, but people get to decide whether the status quo is more painful or going through the change is more painful. Pick your heart.
Yeah. That term spiritual or spirituality is something that is really important to me, and I understand that not everyone's comfortable with that term. And so one of the things that I use with my clients is culture. I talk
Yeah.
about culture. That's one of the components of our metabolic health, right? So if we live in a culture that says this, and this is okay, and this is not okay, like I was saying earlier, everybody around me is doing this. So my mirror neurons are being,
Yes.
shout out to Joan Iflin, my
Yes.
mirror neurons are being told that's safe, that's okay, that's acceptable. I'm going to do that, even
Yes.
though it's probably not safe for me, but there's a human nature, right? To
To match
follow the crowd, follow where
the
it's
tribe
safe.
and herd.
And so one of the things that I think you're doing is you're challenging cultural norms, the status quo, just like me.
Mhm.
And we are seeking an alternative. We're not seeking to destroy culture because I value culture, right? I value traditions. I value holidays. I value celebrations. I don't want to take that away from anybody. And if we want to optimize our metabolic health, if we want to optimize our hormones and all these things, there are going to be points in our cultural context that we're going to have to change. And just like with alcoholism, people don't go to AA support groups and just stop drinking and do nothing else. They are consistently and constantly replacing, right, with an alternative, something that's healthy, that's productive, that is not harming, whether it's going to meetings or going out for coffee with their new AA buddies or picking up a new hobby or, you know, changing environments. And so culture is such a huge part of our process in optimizing and discovering our our metabolic health. And I just wanted to share that and also ask you, like, how do you, because you said you grew up in India, you went to school there, you also went to school in the US, so you have almost this dual consciousness of cultures. I I would love to hear more about your experience with that.
Yeah, so I was born in the United States in Chicago and was in the US till I was 10. So I finished up till fifth grade there. I guess that's called middle school. And then I came to India in grade six. And then from grade six until finishing med school at the age of 23, I was in India. And then I spent another 10 years in the United States, from 23 to 33. And then now I've been back from 33 till 46 and counting in India.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those experiences must have shaped you in very significant ways, especially because they were such long periods of time, and you were at different periods of your life too, like 0
Yeah.
to 10 is very formative,
Yeah.
but then 10 to, did you say 23?
23.
Hugely formative years, like
Yeah.
so important. And I love in your book how you throw in like things about roti or rice or lentils or something, and but you don't it's just like all in one. You don't have like a chapter on Indian food or a chapter on American food. Like it's all relative, it's all connected. And that's something I really appreciate because I think a lot of people in the US, especially, there's multi-generational households, there's multilingual households, there's influence from multiple kind of dominant cultures, right? Just because you grow up in the US doesn't mean you don't have influence from another culture. So, yeah, that's something that even though I haven't got to read the whole book yet, that's something that I recognized off the bat that you're really good at recognizing and acknowledging the influence of culture.
Oh, yes. And I'm going to add one more thing since I'm sort of warming up to this angle that you brought in is, and I've never said this on any podcast before, but yes, my background is sort of a hybrid of both cultures. I'm very familiar and comfortable with both American and Indian culture because of the almost half and half time I've spent. Um, and I'm very thankful for that. I feel so lucky that I actually got to be on ground, immersed in both cultures for such long periods of time. It's not like just going for a 1 month vacation and coming back. But when I was writing this book, I got different kinds of feedback. I was asked who my target reader is, and I said somebody with diabetes who wants better diabetes with less medication. Doesn't matter what country or culture they're from. And I was asked, well, what voice do you want to write with? Do you want to write with a, excuse my language, whitewashed, westernized terminology was used that don't show your Indian aspects if you want a Western reader to read this because they won't relate to your Indianness? And I tried that. I tried to, for example, all the names in my book have some either international twang to them or Indian twang to them. So that, but I wrote the book once with only American names. And, I converted the roti into bread and I didn't talk about roti. And I had that version of the book, but I just couldn't connect to it myself. It wasn't feeling authentic to my voice. And I think the resolution finally came when I asked the editor who I finally worked with, and big shout out to him, Joshua really helped me with this book, to own it. And he said, you can write to the global audience from your perspective, from your Indian perspective, your Indian voice. That makes it you and that makes it authentic. So I think, Amelia, what you're catching is the final result, which has been, I'm going to own my truth. And I don't need to feel guilty or ashamed that I have this hybrid background. I'm going to own it. And you're so right that everybody in this world, if India is, I think we're the most populated, if we haven't overtaken China yet, I think we did. And so the most populated country in the world, well, that means 1 in 6 people on this planet has Indian background. So everybody's exposed to Indian culture anyway. And maybe it's time to not make it so inaccessible and mysterious is let's normalize this. There are lots of international people who love eating Indian food, go to Indian restaurants and eat. So might as well bring it to the table.
Yeah. Be you, your authentic you. Be your whole truth. And I think that's a fabulous example and also I don't want to say strategy because you're not strategizing, you're just being yourself. But it's a way for other people to identify, hey, I'm like that too. I
Right.
might have, well, I have mixed background too. And although I'm white presenting, my
Mm.
parents raised me all up in African culture, Japanese culture, Native American culture, German culture. Like, I can't even begin to describe the diversity of my upbringing. And I think that more of us than we think have unique backgrounds, diverse experiences in culture, language, spirituality, food, all these things. And I never defer to that term melting pot, I'm trying to always think of a better way to say it. One thing that actually I thought of when you were talking is I see you as a global citizen.
Yeah.
That's something that I identify as well. I mean, I'm putting that on you, but it just sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like
Yeah.
that's a good fit because of your awareness and your willingness to just own it, right? Own your truth, own who you are, all the pieces and parts.
Yeah, and it comes back to this unifying thing that we all have is we're all human. And, I love John Lennon's song is, imagine that we didn't have to divide ourselves in these ways because at a scientific level as a doctor, if someone's on an operating table, it doesn't matter which party they voted for or who they pray to or not, or what food they eat. We're human, and that's the common thing that unites us. And we've gotten so focused on what divides us and so caught up with these labels and partitions. And I like the word global citizen because that's what humanity is. And can you imagine how much war and suffering and fighting would stop if we saw each other as one? And how much the world needs that right now? So I think it's a compliment to see ourselves as one global citizen and to see ourselves as united in our humanness and just innate desire to feel connected and innate desire to help and innate desire for love. These are the words that come to me when you bring that up is yes, thank you for thinking me of that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, this is, I think, a perfect time to kind of wrap things up. That was a beautiful kind of closing conversation we had. And so, as far as takeaways, I think that's a great takeaway. You know, we all want to belong, we all want purpose, we all want to be loved and love. And we tend to, well, I think this is our third episode, but what we're trying to develop, Fumi and I, is an affirmation at the end of each episode. And I meant to ask you before we got on if you have an affirmation that you like to use, that you would like to share. No pressure if you don't, because I
Yeah.
forgot to give you a heads up.
Um, Off the top, because I use a lot of affirmations. A lot of the affirmations I use when it comes to a client, they are generated in the moment with what the client was struggling with. Maybe they felt like I can either be this or that, and we try to merge those two to honor the common needs on both sides. So I'm going to try to do that with what you and I just concluded with is to say maybe this is a spontaneous affirmation is I seek to connect with people and to help them embrace their metabolic health. And that's my affirmation for this moment is that's I think what you and I did. It feels universally true for you and me both. There's no division or separateness there. I think we both can 100% align with that. And I feel like in this moment that's the affirmation. But yes, I think affirmations work when they are inclusive, when they are abundant, when they are in present tense, when they are positive verbs like I am, I do, I seek, I allow. These words make strong affirmations because they honor something from within and they can expand from there. So I'm kind of breaking the affirmation down into its parts.
Yeah, that's great. I knew you had something fabulous. So, where can we get your book?
So it's on Amazon. I'm self-published, so everything's on demand printing through Amazon and globally. If you cannot find it, please let me know, but you should be able to find it on Amazon everywhere where in the world. And I am at Reisan Health. That's REISAAN health.com.
Great. And are you on social media?
I am. So it's my first name and last name on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm trying to do some more stuff on YouTube and Twitter as X as well, picking up now, slowly, slowly.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Roshani Sanghani, for being here. I really appreciate your time and our conversation. I'm sure we will see each other again soon, virtually and hopefully physically at a next conference. So thanks everybody for being here with us. My name's Amelia. We are the magic of metabolic health. Thank you so much for being here with us and being part of our village. Until next time, bye.
Thank you.
We're bringing healthy back. Them other bros don't know about the facts. Your health is special, metabolic, yeah. Let's build new habits, make them sexy, yeah. Sustainable life.